YouTube Fronks, welcome back to another video. 2.4 Abyss is out, and as you may or may not have experienced, it's a goddamn boss rush. With floor 11 and floor 12 having updated lineups and a crap ton of HP to chunk, here are some of my tips, floor breakdowns, and team recommendations to assist with your journey, if you want to embark on it. Because I don't do account reviews on my Twitch channel like I used to, my Twitch and YouTube vlogs have not been getting as much assistance with recent Abyss progression. So hopefully this video provides some of that similar insight in condensed video format. And as a small reminder, I do stream nearly every day on Twitch if you want to check me out there. Link in the description. Let's begin. Running through floor 11 and floor 12, here's a breakdown and some small tips to assist your climb. First half of floor 11, chamber 1. Monolith tower defense. Only 4 enemies on the first half, broken up into 2 waves. First wave are 2 ruined triangles, and they generally target you if within their attack range. So as long as you're away from the monolith, should be easy peasy. Second wave are 2 ruined snakes, similar to the triangles. As long as you are not near the monolith when they target their moves, you'll be smooth sailing. The snake's moves can slowly tick down the monolith, but are interruptible, so no worries there. There is no time limit for tower defense, so take your time on this chamber. 11-1-2, second half of floor 11, chamber 1. 6 enemies broken into 2 waves. First wave, some hilly churl shooters and an electro abyss mage. The hilly churls prioritize the monoliths, so take them out first. Second wave is another set of hilly churl shooters and a thunder helm lava churl. The lava churl's first move is a charge, so make sure you are not in the path that contains the monolith when he does it. Prioritize the shooters again, and then it's a 1v1 you versus the lava churl. In my first run, I didn't prioritize the shooters like I recommend here, but my units can just brute force it. 11-2-1, first half of floor 11, chamber 2. Specters and slimes. Nothing too annoying, honestly. Only thing to worry about is the specters gaining height, but generally, melee and range units shouldn't have a problem. 12 total enemies split into 4 waves of 3, consisting of 2 specters and 1 slime each wave. 11-2-2, second half of floor 11, chamber 2. Welcome back to the Water Zoo. 16 enemies of all hydro mimics, with potentially the most problematic being the birds, because they can't be hit with melee attacks. So some form of verticality with your abilities is recommended to take them out. Cryo will be your best friend, Pyro receives free vaporizes, auto-attacking characters like Yoimiya have free access to all the enemies. 11-3-1, first half of floor 11, chamber 3. This is one single wave of 3 enemies, 1 Mirror Maiden, and the 2 Kairagi, 1 Electro and 1 Pyro. This is basically a raw DPS check. The Kairaki will try to be close range to smack you. The Mirror Maiden will try to keep her distance. So either chasing after the Mirror Maiden to group all 3 or defeating the Kairaki first and then leaving the Maiden last are both viable options. Remember that the Kairaki, if not defeated together within a short amount of time, the remaining one will recover 50% of its HP and then be immune to CC. 11-3-2, second half of floor 11, chamber 3. This is the Electro Bird. Stronger version of the world boss in Sarah Island, with the same attack patterns. Immune to Electro and fairly annoying in its movements, but generally shouldn't pose an issue. Burst iframes are your best friends in some of its longer duration abilities. Alright, so this is floor 11. Mostly straightforward enemies with an AoE team comp focus first half and semi-single target focus second half for chambers 3 and chambers 1 for the lava churl. Second half, I would avoid electro-based teams due to the Thunderbird here and watch out for the Hydro Zoo in chamber 2. First half is mostly just CC and AoE damage, no real restrictions on the element besides the obvious slimes in chamber 2 that have immunity. And to note that the Leyline Disorder is in fact normal attack damage increased by 50% to promote the new characters in some way, especially like Yunjin. So Yoimiya has a stronger show here, which I would prioritize on the second half. A lot of the characters use normal attack damage anyway, so this doesn't really affect the first half. 12-1-1, first half of floor 12, chamber 1. Mechanical Ray welcomes you back to start off floor 12. Single target DPS check with a forced 2-phase system at 25% HP. Attack patterns are pretty well known at this point because it's just another world boss and predictable, so this really comes down to you doing enough DPS. Estimation that this boss has around 2.5 million HP, including the second phase additional enemy to burn through. 12-1-2, second half of floor 12, chamber 2. 6 total enemies, 2 waves. First wave is 3 of the mini Geodoggos. Second wave is 1 Pyro Abyss Mage, 1 Elector, and 1 Dendro Samaturl. They're trying to burn us. Prioritize the Pyro Abyss Mage, not the Lector, because the Mage has the Pyro Aura that's going to eat your HP. Hydro has the easiest time removing the shields on this chamber, but Cryo and Electro don't fall too far behind, as long as you can react with Pyro shields here. I would say that the Pyro Abyss Lector is less annoying enemy to deal with than the other Heralds or Lectors. Attacks are generally predictable and or have an indicator on the floor. 12-2-1, first half of floor 12, chamber 2. Just a stronger version of the world boss that we have, same mechanics and attack patterns. Single target DPS check of what I would say is about 2.5 million HP again. Remember that the crystallized shields work to counter its primordial shower attack. 12-2-2, second half of floor 12, chamber 2. 2 Hydro Abyss Heralds at the same time. Highly recommend Cryo for obvious freeze cheese here. Group them up in a corner, AoE them down, and then hopefully you have persistent Cryo application to delete both their shields together. No special mechanics, and they're not super tanky. 12-3-1 first half of floor 12 chamber 3. 4 enemies, 2 waves. 2 ruin guards first, and then 2 ruin graders. No special mechanics for these bosses. Just about 700,000 HP ruin guards and 1 million HP ruin graders. So single target HP is about 3.4 to 3.5 million HP, but AoE wise about half. It's really easy to group the first wave. The second wave, if you are far enough from one ruin grader from the start, it'll charge in your direction. So you can have it charge the other one and stick to a corner. Don't get trapped though. After that, it's just a DPS check. 12-3-2, second half of floor 12, chamber 3. Finally, the last floor is a single Magu Kenki. It's about 3 million HP, I would say, but I'm not really sure. Estimating 3 million HP wouldn't be too far off though, I would think. Same mechanics as usual. Under 75% HP, Magu Kenki initiates his second phase and will start to clone backwards, usually making his back face the wall, corners him. After that, good luck on the single target DPS check. Alright, so that is floor 12. Basically a boss rush, with the first half mostly being single target, except for chamber 3. Kinda sucks, doesn't it? Chamber 3 doesn't fit the recommendations for the previous 2 chambers. Also, with the Pyro and the Hydro Abyss agents, Hydro and Cryo will be the fastest, incentivizing some sort of freeze-based comp. But Hydro, Pyro, Vaporize comps also do really well. As usual, the meta team comps of Freeze, Melt, Vaporize still do extremely well and maintain their high DPS consistency. And the Leyline Disorder, make sure to weave in normal attacks to shred the resists. Don't need to focus too much on this since most of the time this is a given. So, what would I generally recommend for this Abyss then? Quick run through of floor 11. First half will be the easiest side. Any generic AoE DPS composition will destroy this. Bonus animal crowd control for chamber 2 and chamber 3 will make your life a lot easier. Now for chamber 2, any DPS comp that is not mono pyro or mono electro for those slimes in chamber 2 will slay. Don't worry about not using the Leyline Disorder for the first half, by the way. Second half will probably pose the most annoyance for newer players struggling on their Abyss Ascent. Chamber 1 and 3 just deter electro compositions. Chamber 2 screams for cryo-oriented or pyro-oriented for free freezes or free vaporizes. So whether you run cryo-oriented or pyro-oriented for Chamber 2, Chamber 3 will pose no issue. In general, for the second half, any non-electro team with decent investment should be able to cruise through this. The enemies don't get too tanky until floor 12. For quote meta team comps, I recommend Freeze second half and Vaporize, Melt plus crowd control for the first half. And other compositions not limited to what I mentioned here also do well. Eula, Tartak, Xiao, Mono Geo DPS, Freeze, Vaporize, and Melt all work for the first half. And then Freeze, Pyro, and general non-electro DPS for the second half. Alright, now what about floor 12? As I mentioned, Chamber 1 and Chamber 2 will follow a clear-cut pattern. First half, 2.5 million HP plus enemy, no significant resist that can't be reduced to near zero with Superconduct or Viridescent Venom Shred. Second half, multiple enemies favoring AoE comps, Pyro Focus Chamber 1 and Hydro Focus Chamber 2, incentivizing a balance between Hydro and Cryo, or Hydro and Pyro. In my opinion, stack your strongest investment single target DPSer in the first half, and then follow the element tree in the second half. As much as it is possible to break through the second half with non-Hydro and non-Cryo, usually if you can do this, you have no problem 36 starring in the first place. For my gamers who are trying their best to ascend the masochistic Abyss star ladder, then following element advantage saves you a bunch of time. Then following element advantage reduces investment requirements. So my recommendation is to prioritize the meta DPS teams like Freeze, Vaporize, Melt in the second half, and then brute force the first half DPS. Now Chamber 3 is where things get tricky, and this might involve you first collecting the stars on Chamber 1 and 2, and then resetting, changing your team comp, and saving all your team's resources for Chamber 3. Chamber 3 swaps the previous chamber's recommendations around. Single target Magu Kenkis on the second half, with the 4 ruin enemies on the first half. So the original teams used for Mechanical Array and Geo Vishap work best for Magu Kenki, and the AoE focus comps on the second half with the Abyss Selectors work best for the ruin enemies. So besides the small tips I gave for the individual chambers, this is what it comes down to. Don't hesitate to maximize 6 stars for Chamber 1 and 2. Reset, take a break, eat some food, hydrate, and then slowly climb back to Chamber 3 with your teams flipped. At this point, you won't need to worry about star count for Chamber 1 and 2 since you've already gotten it, so Chamber 3, you can save your resources. AoE works excellently on first half Chamber 3. The effective HP drops by half since the enemies themselves are very slow and generally are easy to manipulate and clump up together. Magu Kenki will likely just pose as an annoying DPS check, especially with 10 seconds lost in the beginning for his wind-up animation. Alright, so specific character compositions that work for floor 12 include, but aren't limited to, National Team, which involves Xiangling, Bennett, Hydro, plus Kazuha, Sucrose, or Raiden, Freeze Ayaka, Freeze or Melt Ganyu, physical Eula burst comp, generic pyro reverse vaporize or mono pyro DPS, i.e. Hu Tao, Yoimiya, etc. Mono Geo first half, brute forcing through Geo resist on the Geo Vish app, high investment Xiao compositions, and high investment Electro DPS comps. For the most part, this boss rush is a heavy artifact check, so don't beat yourself too much if 36-star Abyss is tougher than usual. There's no unique mechanics introduced in this Abyss, just beefy enemies. That should wrap it up. Hopefully this tips and recommendation video helps in your ascent through 2.4 Abyss. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like and subscribe for the algorithm and more educational content. Thanks for watching, and good luck in the Abyss. Take care.